Excited for another SEC weekend. Every weekend is a challenge in the SEC, so we are ready for another one, and hopefully we continue on some good momentum we have for the most part last couple of weeks, and just want to keep building on that. So happy to answer questions.
All right, you raise your hand. We'll call on you. We'll start with Dave.
Hey, Mark. Good to see you again.
Hey, Dave.
Couple for you. Is the pitching rotation status quo for this weekend?
Yeah, we'll go Far Jordan TBA.
And also, when you think of Will Sanders, how would you describe his personality?
That's a good question. Will Sanders is very thoughtful. He's a student of the game, loves his teammates. I think he gets along very well with his teammates. He's just a very appreciative kid of the opportunities he's getting. And he's very hungry as an athlete. He wants to be great, and he's always trying to learn. So I think a lot of great characteristics with that kid. Obviously, he's very physically talented, but he has a lot of the attributes you want for guys that end up being very successful.
Colin?
Hey, Mark. Brennan Malone started the last, I think, 3 games at third base. Just what have you seen from him, and is he kind of rounding into the form you wanted to see from him at the beginning of the season?
No, I wouldn't say he's there yet. I would say he's moving in the right direction. Thought he had 3 good at bats last night, and 1 not so good at bat. But he had 2 walks. He had 1 2-strike line out to left field. So I think he's making progress. I don't think he's near where we think he can be yet, and we have seen him be yet. But just at this point, we're just hoping to continue to see progress, and at some point he'll get there.
And Will Sanders came in obviously with a lot of hype as part of this recruiting class. Did you anticipate him having the impact he's had so far this season? And just what has he shown you as a guy that is coming in and pitching big innings for you guys? Yeah, I mean,
when you have freshmen come in that are highly touted, you basically know that some will pan out and some will not. It's just the way athletics works. Some guys get hyped up and they live up to it. Some guys get hyped up and they don't live up to it. So far, he's a guy that has lived up to the hype. He was a perfect game, All-American game guy, which means at one point they thought he was one of the top 40 players in the country. And I'd say as a freshman right now, he's living up to that. So we hoped he could be this good, whether we thought he would be this good, this fast. That would have been maybe a little bit optimistic, but he works so hard that you're not surprised with the success he's having.
John Whittle?
Yep. Missouri obviously was not off to a particularly good start, but they won their series this past weekend against Texas A&M. Did you see anything different out of them this past weekend that makes you think they're playing a little bit better baseball?
Well, I think the number one thing you saw is just that they did win that series. And Missouri, we know Missouri's a dangerous team. They always have been. And so we're going to respect every opponent we play. And Missouri always has, guys that get after it. They compete. They're well coached. So we don't take anything for granted. We're not in a position to take anything for granted. So we're going to focus on how we play like we always do. We talk about it all the time. We've got to focus on how we play, how we pitch, what our mental state is. And this weekend will be no different.
Phil?
Hey, Mark, you said after last night's game when y'all got just 3 hits that you kind of felt like your hitters were a little over anxious, swinging at some balls that ordinarily they had not been swinging at. Any particular reason for that? Is that any bit of a concern for you going into this weekend?
Sometimes you get in that big ballpark and you see the ball flying in batting practice and you're excited and you want to have a great game. And sometimes you get over anxious. That happens with young hitters sometimes. And I think that's a lot of what happened last night. We looked really good in batting practice. We were coming off a really good weekend, and it's such a great environment to play in that I think, everybody wants to be the guy that does what Seitler did last night. And for whatever reason, we were just a little bit over anxious. And, it's not just a blanket statement for everybody. Maybe for one guy, it was one reason. For another guy, it was another reason. I think you also have to tip your cap to North Carolina's pitching some. I mean, they threw a lot of guys that were unorthodox, but had really good stuff. Their stuff was really good last night too. So, and they mixed and matched. So sometimes you got to tip your cap. Sometimes you need to evaluate. And again, we'll move on. We'll move on.
If I can do a quick follow-up, These games against big name opponents, like you played Texas, North Carolina, outside the SEC, in the case of North Carolina at the neutral site, you want to continue to build on that. So do you have any plans for any other teams like that to meet in a neutral site setting in years to come that you know of at this point?
You're talking scheduling for the future years?
Yes.
Well, Texas is coming in next year, not a neutral site, but they're coming into Founders Park next year. And then the rest would be, fairly status quo. There are some tournaments that you look at that are in big league stadiums, and we'll see if those are in the cards for us. But, I enjoy playing the big name teams. And I think, if you feel confident in your team, then you feel confident in playing other big name schools as well.
Colin?
Mark, it might be a little premature, but the MLB draft got announced where it's, I think, 20 rounds. What are your thoughts on that? And do you foresee a situation where it could potentially help you guys get some of these high school kids to school and retain some guys from the staff that might go, in a typical year with 40 rounds?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think all you have to do is look at the last 10 years in our program, and there's a good number of guys drafted within the first 20, and then there were a good number of guys drafted after the 20th. So I think that will continue. Whether it affects the high school kids, probably not, because generally high school kids that have a clue don't sign and give up the SEC experience if they're not a top 3 or 4 round pick. So I don't think it will affect that group that much. But with your older guys, I think it could impact some guys on our current team.
And I kind of wanted to follow up on the high school thing. What do you think is the contributing trend to why a lot of high level high school guys are coming to school, and whether that's at South Carolina or across the country?
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons. Number one, the statistics show very clearly that there are more college guys in the big leagues than there are high school guys. On top of that, you get an education to fall back on when baseball's over. On top of that, the next 3 years after high school, you're improving your social development because you're on a college campus. There are a million reasons, and I won't go into all of them now, but we share them with our recruits, as most schools do, I would assume. The data all shows that unless you're a first round pick, unless you're getting complete life-changing money, the better option is to go through college and then attack your pro career after that, for a million different reasons.
Dave?
Mark, through these first 20 some odd games, the team has gotten pretty loose, the scythe, the battle axe, using big words in the post-game press conference. Do you like seeing that? I mean, is there ever a case of where you've had to step in and say, okay, maybe that's a little too far? Do you just kind of let them do what they want to do?
No, I think, our job as coaches is to create kind of a framework of how we think things should be run. And as long as they stay within that framework of respect for the game, respect for the opponent, respect for how you go about your business, as long as they stay within that framework, I'm all for the guys having as much fun as they want to have. Whether it's the scythe, whether it's different things they do in the locker room. I mean, as long as it's within good taste and within reason. I mean, I think the more teams that have, I think the teams that have the most fun tend to have the most success as well. So I'm all for them enjoying themselves.
John?
Obviously, you've had some confidence in Brady Allen playing center field for a while now, but has he impressed you even with how well he's played that position? And what do you think has been the chief reason he's been able to elevate his game in that way so much?
Yeah, we feel good with him out there. I mean, he's made some highlight plays, obviously, last couple weekends. And so we feel good that he's gonna be prepared when he's out there. He's gonna be in the right spot. He's gonna get the right jumps, and he generally catches everything he gets his glove on. He's gonna throw to the right base. He makes good decisions. He hits the cutoff man. All those things that are important in winning baseball, we feel confident that he'll do. And how has he gotten to that point? Just work ethic. He's worked really hard. He works hard on his offensive game, and he works hard on the defensive side as well. So he's earned the right to be out there right now.
Phil?
You expect Wimmer to be back for this weekend series?
Yes, we're very hopeful that he'll be back and ready to go on Friday.
Mike Gillespie?
Hey, Mark, thanks so much for doing this. I
Hey, Mike.
apologize if you've already been asked this question. I jumped on a little late here, but Just wondering, after last night, you said something interesting. Over the weekend, you guys, were hitting them out of the park really well. Seemed like your guys were loose, and maybe last night they were trying to do a little bit too much of that. Is there sort of a happy medium that you can find there, or do you even want a happy medium, especially coming off a weekend like that?
No, you want a happy medium. I mean, again, baseball is a game of consistency. Baseball is a game of proper approaches. And offensively, you have a proper approach. Your job is to get a good pitch to hit. Your job is to lay off balls outside the zone. Your job is to try to hit hard line drives with backspin. And when you catch them right, they turn into home runs and doubles. And your job is to battle with 2 strikes. And most of the time we're there. Last night, for whatever reason, we were just a little bit more anxious than normal, swinging it, especially off-speed pitches outside the zone. Again, we were in a really cool ballpark. We were coming off a weekend where we hit a lot of home runs, and I think it's natural sometimes for young hitters to want to continue to that and maybe try to do a little bit too much. But it's not anything egregious. It was just one of those nights where North Carolina pitched us well, and we, I thought we helped them a little bit more than we normally would.
Any more questions for Coach? All right, we'll let him go. Oh, Colin.
Mark, kind of a funny one, but I think you had the scythe at the game 3 against Georgia. Is there a way? I know how players can get to hold the scythe. Is there a way coaches can earn ways to be able to hold it maybe during games?
Well, it has to be passed on to you by Brady Allen or Wes Clark. And after the big weekend series win at Georgia, they requested that I would hold it for the post-game interview, and I was happy to oblige.
Got a question on that, Mark. Is that new one real? I mean, that looks like a real field tool.
Yeah, Dave, it's real. So I would suggest you don't get too close to the dugout.